And yeah, we will wait for some more minutes to see if other people will join.
Who else accepted the invite?
Oh, at the moment, yeah, I have to to see all the emails. Is
No, no, no worries, no worries, no worries. I was just asking.
yeah. No, well, I think that the same people that were here yesterday will join tomorrow. Frank White and Gary Bernard and other people, Guy Pignolet and
So Colonel, you were a mountaineer?
I was,
Wow.
graduated in '88.
Wow, I was probably there at the same time. Not
Oh,
going,
really?
I'm not going to school, but I was nearby in Maryland, and I went there once in a while for. I think I took a I'm sorry, essay, one of the SAT tests for electrical engineering or something there.
Excellent.
You survived that place. It's cold.
Oh my goodness. I went to. It's going to sound funny, but I went to WVU out of state because I didn't want to go to Maryland in state. And that was only because I wanted to move a little bit away from home. And even though it was 4 hours, it's West Virginia, so it might as well have been 4 light years. And
Yeah.
The first winter there was brutal.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about the school is, as you know, it's known as a party school. Well, I found out how they keep warm during the winter. West Virginia moonshine goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was good. I learned a lot.
I mean, you must have not indulged if you were able to get the service and getting the clearance there.
Yeah. Well, my first year, I was taking a double major, and I took like 23 credit hours, so I was really jobbing hard. The first semester, the second year, let's just say that in addition to just getting myself slightly burned out, I hooked up with the wrong guy, so that semester was not pretty. And then after that, it's like, yeah, I gotta get your mind right, boss, and got back into the horse, and like you said, jobbed on through. But yeah, it's not too hard at the school to go ahead and start taking some of the wrong roads, but I worked out.
That's awesome. Oh, well, obviously worked out. Thank you. God bless you for your service and your continued service.
Appreciate it. Who else do we have on the call now?
So we have so Adriano is here, Emeline is here, and Mikhail is here.
And Kelvin Dafiaghor from Nigeria, I think, or yeah, an African country.
Okay.
And that's it so far.
Frank is joining now.
Awesome.
Hello, Frank.
Yep, we got the illustrious Frank is just joined.
Can you hear me, Frank?
I can. For some reason, my microphone was blocked with some kind of message about Otter. And I had to say, okay, I don't have anything against Otter. That's fine. And they let me in.
Great. So.
There's more otters than people here.
Hey, Frank.
Yeah.
It's Blade, Karlton. How you doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. Hey, I learned something very important this week about you.
What was that?
You know, they told me talking to somebody, and I said, "Do you know Frank White?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "You know what Frank White spelled backwards is?" And I went, "No." He goes, "Says the man." So I was pretty impressed. You're the man in any direction.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Well, whoever said that has a good sense of humor.
No, they had great respect for you. It was great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have Marie-Luise. Hi, Marie-Luise.
Hi, Adriano.
Glad to see you.
Yes, I'm also glad to see you.
Okay, excellent. And yeah, well, I think maybe we can start.
Okay.
And yeah, I believe Karlton can give us some updated information about the ASDC track on 18SDG, because yesterday we couldn't have updated information about that.
And no problem. So first of all, hello, everybody, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. Appreciate you coming on. For ISDC 2024, the International Committee of the National Space Society, which I chair, is setting up an IC session. And part of that session is going to include a discussion regarding the 18th SDG. And so as of right now, the entire time slot that we have for all the events, I believe, is approximately close to 90 minutes. So we have segmented those out appropriately. And in terms of the SDG session, we're going to have the equivalent of a panel, if you will. And Adriano, you'll be able to go ahead and run that. And the idea will be, at least intent, communicate where we are with why we're doing this, where we are with it, have a dialogue about the whys and wherefores, and then, basically next iterative steps to push it forward. Because this is a international effort, the mindset is more international representation we have on that session, the better. Because at least my view, I think we want to avoid having a perspective that this is just a purely American view, because it is ISDC, it's based in the US, there can be that perception. So make sure that we have the right international flavor, nuance, and discussion, and that session will be the best. And then once that's all said and done during the session, during ISDC, there'll be an opportunity for people who attend to kind of mingle together and maybe do some off-session discussions, and then hopefully be able to go to the next step, which is, if this works out the way I would like, Adriano, we have two major events for the Space Society. One is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. And then in October, November timeframe, we have something called the Space Settlement Summit. The difference between the two is that ISDC really is the big gala type thing where we have the plethora of the discussions, exhibitions, all that, your typical kind of symposium. But the Space Settlement Summit is more focused, where we invite senior leaders and experts in those related disciplines. We bring them together and work to have substantive dialogue on key issues leading humanity towards eventual settlement of space and the development space. What I'm thinking is that we will want to have one of those segments specific to the 18th SDG, and we can have a conversation either at ISDC or shortly thereafter about what would success look like if we did that. So, for example, if, and using one from last year, we talked about what are some of the challenges that we would have in the medical field, for example, related to space. And what are some things we should be thinking about? During that settlement summit, we got leading professionals to talk about that. And out of that, we got a list of recommendations, areas that we needed to focus on. That became areas for research and also papers and so forth. And it led us to things that we would populate into the International Space Development Conference for the range of people to address, whether they be students doing particular experiments and so forth, all the way up to senior leaders coming in to speak on the topic. And then people would leave there better educated about the issues and be able to become advocates on pushing the issues to the next level. So my thought is, after ISCC, positioning the same thing at Space Settlement Summit, focusing on the international aspects of settlement and how alignment with the 18th SDG would help to do that. So that's where we are. Dr. Rick Janae, who's pulling this together for me, is going to sending out some updates on this. We'll get this first to you, Adriano, and then we can share it with the team. And then as we get closer towards ISCC, we'll put more detail and fidelity behind timing and tempo and how we're going to execute. So that's the overall update. And subject to anybody's questions, I'll pause.
What about Mexico? There was the intention we had talk about during our conversation a couple of months ago, that you were going to propose to Mexico to chair the track. That
is still being worked. And so one of the things that Dr. Janae is looking into is through the context that we have, pushing that as a potential recommendation. And so he's still working on that, and along with Al Enzatula. So as soon as I can get more fidelity in what it is, I'll let you know. But that's still a work in progress.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, Robert, I think we can go ahead. We had enough information about ISDC and the Space Settlement Summit. It's also very interesting for the this fall. And yeah, that was something that we didn't consider until today, and we have to add it to our calendar, of course, of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and we want to take advantage. It's a good segue. We want to take advantage of that that great platform at the NSS to promote the two other summits that we're going to be talking about now, and encourage people to both participate as panelists, moderators, join as promoters of the 16th SDG, or at least just attend virtually or in person. So we want to get some tie into those, obviously, to naturally make this keep growing and the following. So that's a great segue. So I will jump back. So this was our discussion yesterday, this version 5. So I kept that. I peeled out in version 6 here. This is just the essentially where we left off. I did some cleanup, but all the substantial significant changes were being done in real time. So there's really nothing that was changed from what you saw. Just to bring Colonel Johnson up to speed, just to give him, and so we can have some input from him very, very quickly. We're envisioning to have maximum engagement and maximum discussion. That will be the two summits, one with the aligned with COPIUS, one aligned with the General Assembly. They're going to be the first one corresponding with the Vienna conference will be virtual. The other one will be hybrid in New York as before, and big shoes to fill for the great job that you did last time on the first one. but we hope to use that as a launching pad and engagement with as broad an audience as possible to build a consensus throughout the partner member organizations, as well as to gain membership in the promoters that will sign up to reach 100 or 200 by then. Is what we're shooting for. And so to do that, this is the basic format. Kick off with a small keynote and then have 5 1-hour roundtables, 5 topics, and each 1-hour session will kick off with a quick, the moderator quickly 5 minutes framing the discussion and that topic, really connecting it to the keynote. The keynote will be overarching, and then we'll have the 5 pillars for that day. The moderator will kick off, linking that keynote down to the topic for that hour. We'll have an interactive discussion among the panelists. We'll have some time for question and answer, and then the next panel. So, and then rinse and repeat 5 times, at least 5 times for the in-person. We might be able to do 6 for the virtual. And that's the format. So do you have any feedback on that format, sir?
So just a couple of questions. The format overall is good. Do we have an idea of the panel topics?
Yes, that's what we're here to discuss. That's the next.
Okay.
You're great with these segues today. Another great segue.
One team all in. Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
So to that end, just a thought. And this is just me. I'm just making this as a recommendation, or at least a point for consideration. I like the idea of setting up things where they lead to a hopefully logical conclusion. So as we're looking at the panels, my recommendation would be we kind of look at what we think the end state needs to be for the I don't want to say the keynote, but the final panel, final event of the day, and how all the other sessions lead up to that. Maybe it's and I'm making it up just for conversation purposes. Let's say that one of the panels is focused on doing counterfire on an 18th SDG. For example, the panel will be made of people. These are all people who are friends or at least frenemies. And they would focus on why not having an 18th SDG is a good idea. That gives us input to say, like the next panel, what says, what do we want it? And then at the end of the day, we have something that gives us pros and cons. And we as a team focusing on trying to get this through, we can look at how do we minimize the negatives and attenuate the positives so that when we leave the session, now we have a new set of things that help us get closer to the goal. So just kind of thinking that whatever panel or ideas we set up for the panels lead to a logical conclusion to something would be useful. And then the other thing is this is more of a tactical detail. A lot of times when people do these type of events, it's a kumbaya fest. People come together, they talk a lot, they go to the after party and then they leave and nothing happens. I think we should have a conscious effort on once these sessions are done and that event is done, what do we want to have as output of it that takes us to the next level of 18th SDG development? So those are just a couple initial thoughts. Over.
Yeah, so I definitely agree. So I mean, Adriano set that precedent when he had, I know that I wasn't part of them, but I've seen the papers that came out of them, and he had white papers or reports that came out of other similar events that he did previously. And I think we say that there will be a report that this will go into helping support the recommendation. This will be like there probably should be, you know, the procedure better than I, but a white paper that for all the reasons that we're saying yes in the proposal to the UN, there's a page, 2-page, whatever that backs it up. I can even envision that we say, I'm actually working on one myself, that well, we say it supports all the SDGs, all the other 17. Well, how? So I've actually have a two-pager that I've developed on every single one of the 17 SDGs. And I actually drill down to the specific NASA. I'm a NASA guy, so I'm a NASA ESA. Science guy on the science side, even though I'm here at KSC on the launch side. So I actually have a specific data set that we use that actually promotes this SDG. So we can actually have something that's supporting documentation, essentially, we can come out with. But we should, as you say, as I put in Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind, and we actually say up front that this is the output that's going to come out. Follow through is everything. So I definitely agree with what you're saying.
One additional thought, you gave me something to think about here. When it comes to doing this particular SDG, there are some nuances with it that we'd have to navigate. For example, looking at what happens at Copious and other events, it's very clear that nations have nationalist views on different things, right? And each one of the nations looks at the same problem set within their own lens as what's in it for them. But there's seldom the discussion of how do we get that alignment on those same issues with other nations. So looking at that, I think maybe one of the panels should look at, and I may be getting ahead of myself. If so, I regrets. I often regrets. What are the political realities and nuances we should be aware of when it comes to the 18th SDG, and how do we get better insight into what nations are thinking about it, and then how do we now leverage the other four that are out there to build alliances and strengthen the messaging so that we develop the 18th SDG in a way that aligns with things that matter to them, to get them to buy in, with the intent of getting somebody to step and go. I'm going to be the lead of this and get others on their side. So just something else to think about on that. Over.
Yeah. So couldn't agree more. And a discussion working up to this, specifically with Mikhail and Emeline, they specifically say, you see item number here. This was it's listed here as the first item for the second, essentially the first substantive item for the General Assembly hybrid. What are the space priorities of the various members, and specifically addressing the emerging countries that which is an area that Emeline and her organization focuses upon. So this was something that it is important for us to acknowledge and understand. So we definitely agree. So we're all on the same page. So by the way, everybody can see my screen? Okay, good. All right. Do you agree, sir, that this is we're on the right track here? Colonel?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So you agree that this reflects what you were saying, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, correct.
Got it. Okay, good. All right. So let's dive in. So let's just do a high level look here, and then we'll literally, and then we'll zoom in. So we've got 2 days. So where we are is that we want to have no more than 5 sessions on the hybrid for sure. We could go to 6. I prefer to keep it to 5, but we can go to 6 on the second day, the first virtual one, because it won't be people physically. You have to keep in the room and keep fed and traffic and all the logistics that go involved with that. No one's going to be consuming it all in one bite after all. So we want to get these topics down to 5 or 6. So that's what we're here. That's our objective for today. And we want to have ones that address areas that are going to be able to help get this passed. So the first item here is we talked about being able to encourage people we want to hear. I mean, this leads a little bit to also what you you were talking about. We actually have one section that talks about every country, but this is focused on the members. So we envision that there would be an opportunity for each member to do 60 seconds on introducing themselves and what's important to them, why SDG is important to them, what's important to the organization, and be able to frame that. We had a discussion about submitting one slide that would go in the deck, integrating the deck ahead of time, and encourage that person to be there to speak to it. If they're not there, then it's still part of the written record that for that particular organization. So it's a way to allow people to be heard, and does help frame the discussion, because we're looking to meeting their needs and regarding their organizational needs and their needs regarding the 18th SDG. So that any other discussion on that? There was some concern about, well, we're going to have too many, and we all felt that is a legitimate concern, but it's probably going to be self-selecting. Probably not going to get more than 60 that are going to step up for the 60 seconds a piece. So probably self-limiting. So then the next item here was an educational. So this was, what's the strategy for being able to get this approved? Who, as you say, make it international, don't make it US centric, don't make it centric to any of the large players that might introduce controversy. And so this is where we talk about this and addressing the strategy in terms of as Adriano will talk about in his in the flyer that he's been working with a small group. Sir,
can you just zoom a little bit more, because
thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, I meant to do that. Thank you so much.
That.
Yeah, don't be shy. Anybody, don't be shy. Yeah, please. I said the high level view, and I literally was going to zoom, but I didn't. Okay, so that's the stuff. So I'll open up the floor if we're okay with this first one, the way I described it. Then we'll say that one's okay. Second one, in terms of the logic to pass. So I'll open the floor for this one. And does that make sense? Is there anything here that wants to pull up in there? Because we do have to do some consolidation here. So what are people's thoughts? Adriano, this is mostly you, Mikhail, that you had, and Emeline, you had any concerns? Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, those are, and this does frame the discussion, Karlton, as you were saying, what's it going to take, and then that. Okay, so the next item here is space resources. So we've got space resources, civilian-led space development and astropolitics, number 5, orbital debris, number 6, space law, and number 7, space security. So if we do keep these to 2, then we need to come out with no more than 4 here for these. So are there any, so orbital debris, although it does, everything has overlap. I mean, everything has overlap. That's just the nature of space, and that's actually a good problem to have. You want things that are interconnected, or else you wonder why you have it in the first place. But some things are important enough to have their own. Are there any logical consolidations here? Go ahead, please.
Can I add something in here, or at least start? So it might be useful. Okay, let me take a step back, because I want to just make sure it's clear on the why behind the what on this.
Yeah.
These items are typical things that are discussed at things like COPUS and so forth. So it's in alignment with that. The challenge with COPUS type issues are that these things are all stuff that space-faring nations care about, meaning that if I may develop a nation or a non-spacefaring nation that we want to get into this ecosystem, or we're an emerging spacefaring nation, meaning that we don't have space capabilities, but we eventually want to be able to do it, or at least participate in it. None of these things address that. So there might be an opportunity here to segment the 4 or 5 areas into the following pattern. Spacefaring nation type issues, which orbital debris and some things may fit in. Emerging spacefaring nations, where you start looking at things like space resource utilization, and maybe a top of line of space development, meaning that I want to be a nation that is an agricultural nation, but I would normally think I don't have anything to do in space. But if I am able to become a center of excellence for agricultural development to support space-related activities, now I'm a player. So that's an emerging spacefaring nation. And then the last part is a non-spacefaring nation. People who would say, I don't really have a play in this. We want to get them on board. Those type of nations, so that they are not left at the table when everybody else is gone. So I would offer, take a look at these topics and then align those with those 3 things, and then see what resonates, if that makes sense. Over.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's certainly aligned with what we described here as looking at what are the concerns, particularly developing nations, which we did put that. Let me just fast forward.
If I could attenuate that, for example, this is something that came up that I think maybe everybody on the call has at least heard about or saw. I'm not advocating for it, or I'm not poo-pooing on it. Either way, just make sure I put up that disclaimer. When Native American nations stepped up and had the concern about debris and the moon, they were looking at it from a unique perspective. Now those nations are not spacefaring nations. They're embedded within the United States, yes, but they're separate. So I look at that and I go, what would a nation state like that find interesting in the list of topics? Probably orbital debris, because it blocks out the moon and so forth. Okay, that resonates. Space resources, maybe not. So just kind of demarking the conversation with those segments would be useful. That's just to add a little bit more flavor on that.
Yeah. So I will address that. Frank had his hand up, and Emeline did as well. So I apologize, Frank, for the delay. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Yeah, I just want to agree with Karlton, and it was the thought I had after yesterday's session. I feel like everything we talk about has got to relate back to Earth. And if it seems untethered from Earth, there will be people and countries who feel like, okay, I'm tuning out. The SDGs are about the Earth. And so I don't mind going into a lot of detail about space resources or any other topic that is, as Karlton says, very much top of mind for the US and Russia and China. But if we can, once we go outward, if we bring it back, I think that will help us to gain support. And I think when we did the first big meeting, the 8-hour meeting, and partly in New York, I think everyone did make an effort to relate the 18th SDG to the 17th. So it may be a filter for not talking about some of the topics we agreed on yesterday, or it may be a filter for consolidation, or it could just be an addendum at the end of the panel. How does this relate to the Earth? And let people try to answer that.
Excellent point. Thank you so much, sir. Emeline?
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well, and I'm in agreement, I guess, with Karlton and Frank, and specifically if we want to focus on bringing in the developing and emerging countries that are not spacefaring nations, then definitely I think what's missing here is, like, for example, downstream capabilities and applications, which is like the center of what most of these countries are actually working on, with utilizing satellite data for disaster relief, monitoring planet Earth or climate change kind of like issues. These are sort of like top of mind, and so now hearing kind of the what have just been said, I think that area is not represented in what we have.
So how do we address it? I do want to, point out that the session that we mentioned that addresses what would be the needs, wants, desires of the emerging countries, as a place, again, everything was there as a placeholder, was nominally put for the second, which may not be the right place for it now that we're elevating that to more important. So maybe there's a place for it as part of the framing for both, and maybe we talk about it in both, because there's a level of assumption that people are going to be looking at season 1 before season 2, or episode 1 before episode 2. Maybe not, or sometimes you start episode 2 by saying, this is what you missed in episode 1, and we bring them up to speed. And if we do, that will be among the most important. But I'm just pointing that out. It's up into the floor whether we move this hour-long session up. But either way, I would, to be able to make room for the non-spacefaring nation downstream application discussion, we need to begin by making that space in the schedule here and doing the consolidation of these 5 items. So whether it's people's recommendations or thoughts, we have, again, space resources, development and astropolitics, orbital debris, space law and space security. Space law and security are naturally related, so we could consolidate those if necessary. But what are people's thoughts?
Can I add a thought on this?
Yes, please.
And we're getting some. I like this discussion, by the way. I like the teamwork that we're getting here. I think we're getting some pretty good insights. Both Frank and, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the nice lady who just spoke, but
Emeline.
I'm sorry.
Emeline,
Emeline
from Space Base in New Zealand. She works with developing nations.
Roger that. Emeline, I like the word that you use, which is downstream. And so, Frank, what you're hitting at, this is something I continue to advocate for, but this is really, for me, the first time that's coalesced into, I think, the right verbiage. I think as we look at each one of these types of things, and I want to get back to answering the question of what you have in terms of defining and so forth. We start the conversation with, these are space-related activities, but the model, if you will, the mental model that we have is, and I'm still working out in my head here, but the what, which is, I'm just thinking it through. Space resource, okay, or orbital debris. Why is that important? Orbital debris does blah, 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 blah. What do we want? We want an 18th that allows this to happen. And then Frank and Emeline, the next part of that is, what is the Earth-related downstream? What I like to call the Earth ROI. But what is the Earth downstream ROI for this? And if that is a question mark, then we got a problem, because we really need to address that somehow. And then the last part is, what are the next steps? We can capture it that way. Now we can start showing everybody the value stream of what we're talking about in these conversations, how each one of these areas, whether we combine them or not, there is a value stream for both space-related activities and then downstream Earth ROI. I like that pattern. So I just offered that out for thought. Over.
Did you say space, Earth-related activities and then downstream ROI?
Yeah, so what I said was space activities and how do those translate into an Earth based ROI downstream? What is the downstream value proposition of this upstream? The upstream is the space activity. The downstream is the Earth-related ROI, and why does it matter?
Yeah. Emeline? I guess since he's agreeing with you, no issues with any of that, right? Okay. So with that context, maybe there doesn't have to be a new session that's imposed, but we frame these sessions in that context.
I think so.
Okay. So this is the overall. So and that's a, it is easy for people to wrap their heads around and mentally prepare. People like that kind of they can prepare. So let's say we have that formula, that template of, okay, we're going to discuss, we have the overall mission of the 18th SDG, why it matters, break that down into 5 reasons why it matters, and then for every 5 of those reasons we're going to discuss. The first part of the discussion will be the space activities, and then we're going to bring it back down to earth, literally talk about the downstream ROI, and then we're going to do that in the context of space resources, development, debris, law, and security. Is that Colonel? Is that what you're advocating?
Could you rephrase that? I had a little problem hearing it.
Okay, no problem. So what I was saying is that maybe we don't have to change any of the topics. We just establish a template at the beginning that says, okay, we're going to, here's the reasons, here's our approach to rationale, reasons, and approach, logic for the 18th SDG. We're going to talk about 5 particular elements of that, reasons for that. And then within each of those 5, our formula or template for each session would be first part talking about, well, the keynoter, the moderator will talk about why it matters, why it fits into the approach to the SDG, the 18th SDG in the first place. And then the discussion will be, the first part of the discussion will be around the space activities themselves. And the second part of the discussion for that within an hour within each topic will be what's the downstream Earth-related ROI within that particular topic area.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. At least my thought is, from what we've been talking about, that aligns with at least my thinking of it, and it addresses the things that people have talked about thus far. And it also aligns with the types of things that are being discussed at Focus. This gives us, I think, a segue in when we go there in the various means that we do. We'll be able to combine align conversations with things that nation states are finding important. I'm just using this, I'm just not advocating either way. If Ukraine brings up, if Russia brings up orbital debris or what have you, at least we can have something that talks about the upstream and downstream of this. And we may agree to disagree on some things, but we may find some areas of agreement. This will help us.
Got it.
For the others that are on, is this making sense? Do you guys, are you in agreement with this? Or do you see there's something we should be looking at it differently?
Mikhail, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention this totally makes sense, because if we say, and this can be a rule of thumb, 193 UN nation members, only half a dozen are actively spacefaring, maybe a couple of dozen are actively involved, but 100 plus nations on the Earth, they are not spacefaring, and they should be our priority. So this is exactly shifting the priorities for these meetings the right way. I fully agree.
Yeah, I agree. Emeline's nodding your head. Did you want to any contribute? Just thumbs up. Great thumbs up. Marie-Luise, what do you think?
Yeah, it's okay, I think.
Okay. All right, excellent. So
Robert,
I,
I had one other
go-
thought. Yeah.
yes, Frank, please.
It just occurred to me, I of course I like the direction we're going in, but the other thing is I think we do have a topic on peaceful uses. And in fact, again, it's COPUOS. What does that stand for? Peaceful uses of outer space. So I think another term or idea that we want to consistently work in, not necessarily explicitly, but peaceful uses. Of course, that
Excellent point.
contributes to the Earth.
My idea is to propose a weapon-free moon.
That reminds me of a very popular television program right now. You know, for all mankind, of course.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, can I offer a calibration on that?
Yeah, sure.
I agree with you on it, by the way. Putting on my other hat, I recognize, and I think that everybody here recognizes that we may want certain things to happen, but there are also realities as nation states or nation states. So pushing the needle forward on this, not avoiding the word peaceful, but embedding that when we need to and put it in the right places, but focusing on mutually collaborative efforts in space.
Right.
Using that as a forcing function, because if you're collaborating in the right way, then you're not shooting at each other. And the output of that, I hope, is peace. So if we can find the terminology that communicates the same, but the end state is what we're looking for, I think that works. Because, and I only throw that out there because words matter. And I'm for those of you who don't know, and they've already said this, so I'm a former military colonel. So just putting on my military hat, I know certain military people will look at that. Oh, yeah, but it's not going to be peaceful because there are bad people. Okay, I understand that, but it doesn't mean we got to go fight. So let's talk about collaborating. So that's why I was just kind of thinking, finding those type of words and maybe mutually collaborative efforts in space would allow us to get the same effect. But just something to consider.
I agree. I think that's the best way to get over the idea without using terminology that will be challenging for people. And that goes back to weapons free and whether that would be the kind of thing that would I didn't mean to distract from it, Marie-Louise, by referring to the TV show. We really ought to talk about that kind of thing.
I do not know this TV show. Sorry.
Well, that's the whole focus of it. Yeah.
And Frank, I learned that, by the way, from you. So about words matter. So I don't think you derailed it. Actually, these are the things that we got to look at because,
right.
Again, at least speaking for me, I'm an American, grew up in America, but I have been blessed with being internationally focused because I spent a lot of time outside of America. And one of the things I always try to think back on is if I say something and I'm speaking as an American, that may have a totally different perspective if I'm from New Zealand or Australia or what have you. So just kind of bring this full circle and bring it back to the topic here. My thought is, as we're looking at these things we want to talk about, keeping that international hat on, and when we choose to use certain words, let's make sure we ask ourselves, would the phrasing of the things we're talking about be, if not universally accepted, at least mostly accepted in the international context? And if not, we can look at how we want to rephrase it. So just a thought.
I agree with you completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to you, sir. I didn't mean to derail that.
No, you're not derailing. It's not derailing. I mean, this is substantive. This is very substantive. So this is exactly why we're having this discussion. So it's not all derailing. If it's derailing, I won't be so polite. Actually, I'll jump in, not for my benefit, but for the benefit of the time of everybody that's in the group. So
Roger that.
I'll keep everybody on track in deference to everybody's time. So, but no, it's not derailing. So, not at all. So we appreciate it. So, and I just put a note in here from Mikhail in the chat that is aligning with what everybody's saying. So if we with that in mind, let's go back to these topics that we need to condense into. So we've got six slots, and we've got 2 taken, so 4. So we need to have these 7 into 4. So I'm open to suggestions on either combining topic or deleting a topic or moving it to the second session. Again, we have so sir, Karlton, are you on video? Can you also see? You can see my screen, right?
I can only see A3, A4, A5, A6, A7. I can't see.
Okay, yeah. That's all there is. Unfortunately, I mean, if I zoom out too much, then some people say it's too small. So yeah. So I have. Okay, I just want to make sure that, because I know.
So what are the 7 total? Space security, space law, orbital debris,
civilian-led, astropolitics, and resources. And again, I'm just going to go, and I apologize for jumping back and forth. But just I'll go read the second session that's aligned. First one is meant to align with the copious meeting, and the second with the General Assembly meeting, because you might want to look at doing the merging, not just within that day, but merging across the 2 days. And so we had a great discussion yesterday about the items in green. So those, they don't mean they're done, but they've been for first tier level addressed, where we talked about outer space settlements. Now on the second day, we had the same concept that we would have maybe the people that didn't be able to do their 60 seconds for the first one, do it now, maybe not, see how many we get. This is where we put where we talked about a whole session on needs of the developing countries. Maybe this doesn't get a session anymore, because now maybe this is baked into the entire 2 days. So it gets even higher than the whole session. It gets 2 days worth, therefore it doesn't get its own specific session. We talked about it throughout. We mentioned it in the keynotes. We mentioned it in the kickoffs to the panels. Potentially, I'm just putting it out there. But the topics themselves for the second day, in Friday the 13th, appropriately enough, is outer space settlements, living and working in outer space. Now that was focused on the human factors, human elements, the physiology, the psychology, the sociology, that kind of impact. Space for peace. And the last one was space for sustainability and sustainable space development. So there's some natural overlap there, but
you said that the second day aligns with the second day of the UN session. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So the first one is meant to align with the Vienna Copious meeting, and the second is meant to align with the New York General Assembly meeting.
Right. I'm sorry.
These aren't consecutive days. It may sound like that. I apologize. Second session. Second episode.
So to make sure I say this right, the second session aligns with the UN event in New York. The topics align. Okay.
That's what as well align with it. So the way Adriano initially binned these were to align with the topics that were on slate for that day, and then the other, so there's some natural progression. But Adriano, go ahead, please, sir.
No, I was thinking about how to harmonize the topic of space for Earth together with the the main aim of 18th SDG, that is to promote expansion into space. So I believe that when we approach the topic of what is the return of the investment for the non-spacefaring countries, that is a very important topic, of course. But I believe our setup should not be what is the return for these countries given by the satellites technologies for agriculture, for yes, all this is important, but is not our main focus. What we need maybe to discuss is what will be the return for all the countries of Earth. So the non-spacefaring, as Mikhail said, the great majority are not spacefaring, yes, yet. What will be the return from expansion? Why they will be benefit if civilizations start to expand into space? I think this is the topic, because let's put it in a radical extreme way. If we don't start expanding, likely there will be no more money and resources to keep alive the satellites for Earth observation, etc., because our economy will crash, and civilization will go back centuries and millennia back in history. So our real point is why the Earth people, all the Earth people will be benefit from civilization expansion into space. And I can mention at least a couple of things that are important from this point of view. The first point is the environment, moving our industry outside. The Jeff Bezos plan, just to be simple, will mean that we will decrease our footprint, our ecological footprint on Earth, first. Second, moving the big industries outside will decrease the need for electricity, for power, for energy on Earth, because in perspective, in some centuries, of course, we are not talking about a few years, of course, the demand of energy on Earth will only be the private citizens, the tourism, the industrial demand will be outside. Therefore, we will have a lower energy demand on Earth. And the most of all, the real big return is that since the economy will start growing at the global economy, I mean, Earth and space economy together will grow at an unprecedented pace. The so-called underdeveloped countries will be finally allowed to grow, to have social growth. So I think that when we start talking about we shouldn't talk what space, what is the return from space to Earth, but what is the return from expanding into space to all the peoples of Earth. I believe that maybe we could add a session on this topic to our list of panels, and specifically address this discussion, because while Robert was scrolling the list of the panels, honestly, I wouldn't know what could be cancelled and replaced. But I think that in the second day, the hybrid panel, we can maybe think to have a little bit more time, because we will make it in the morning and in the afternoon. So we can maybe have not only 6, but maybe 7 panels or something like that. So to have a dedicated panel to this topic. Okay, the other point that came to my mind is that the lessons learned in space by the space communities. I think about agriculture, about farming, about food raising, and so on, can be very usefully applied on Earth. So to learn how to grow food, vegetable food, in closed environments will be very useful on Earth too, because the yield of a cubic cultivation is very much higher than an horizontal cultivation. This is already demonstrated by some experimental activities that are ongoing on Earth. So there are. I just mentioned what it came to my mind now, and that we already discussed it in our Space Renaissance committees developing several papers and so on. But there are a very, very high number of reasons why expanding communities in space will benefit all the people on Earth, even those people who will not migrate in space. Of course, that will be the majority for the next years. However, there will be enormous benefit. Sorry.
So Adriano, I'm having a little. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you are saying. So, is it your proposition that one of the day 2 sessions just talks about expanding out? When we talk about the downstream for space, what I hear you saying is that going out there, we're still going to get some benefit. Like at some point the sun's going to blow up and all the different things, and so we need to expand. But doesn't the downstream already hit the same thing you're talking about, or am I missing something?
They both benefit in different ways.
Please clarify to my poor English the real meaning of downstream.
Yeah, so downstream would be like GPS, the benefits of the applications, what we call applications, right, Emeline? That's what you're referring to, basically all the applications that go with it. So the geospatial, all the benefits that come from geospatial. So the upstream is the infrastructure that puts it all in place, and the downstream is the benefits that come from for agriculture, from farmers, from the so-called developing nations can get from better Earth resource utilization, all the weather satellites, early warning of typhoons and natural disaster relief. Those are all downstream. Those we're calling downstream.
Okay.
So there's overlap, but there definitely is difference in benefits that come from the current infrastructure that we have downstream applications, and benefits from expansion and what we won't call colonization, but we keep using that word, but we'll call it settlement. They're both, we do want to talk about how they both benefit Earth, and they do benefit Earth in different ways. So a big one, for instance, is energy. Big one, which we probably didn't talk about enough in here. And I think that's actually, we probably should, that really is worthy of a whole session just on energy. I don't think that is adequately addressed now that I think of it, because that's a hot topic as well. It should be.
a lot of topics that we are neglecting, but we cannot do
Right,
it
but
in one
right,
day.
but some of no, I know, but I mean, some of them there are other forums where they're spoken about. Some of them are just emerging, so that they need to be. I mean, debris is one where there's a lot of forums that are addressing just that. There's there's whole week forums in debris, and it's so important that it comes to our mind. How can we leave it out? But energy, because when we talk about expansion, that's when energy can make a significant, again, there's not that many forums for talking about expansion. NSS is one, but and also we have to also think ones that appeal to the non-spacefaring nations, or people that within the spacefaring nations are not
I
politically aligned with space expansion.
I understand what you mean and what Karlton means, and Frank and Emeline. But we have to keep in mind that we are an avant-garde. We are thinking forward. We are thinking upward. So definitely, I don't want to disregard the downstream technologies. They are helping humanity in several ways. So I think we can mention them. I am not saying to not mention that, and I'm just saying that we can talk a little bit about that, but our focus, our discourse should be the benefit of going outside, not to stay here and take and get benefits from the satellites. That is history, if you want. And I can also say that if we don't claim the space debris, that will end. We will go to an end, not only for not having resources anymore to maintain them, but also because there will be such a mess in orbit that it will not be manageable anymore. So if we don't go there to make to clean everything and to start reusing the debris because they are value, etc., there will be no benefit anymore. So I think this is a very important concept. Downstream is
so
enough.
Yes. Yeah. So if
it could be the
so
title.
something,
It could be the title of the new session. Downstream technologies are not enough.
right. So just because something isn't necessarily talked about a lot, I mean, the proportion of what we talk about something doesn't necessarily relate to its importance, because it has to do with where do we fit in, what's the value add that we bring, and the new thoughts. So because we could touch on it and then expand from there. So I wasn't suggesting that at all that debris wasn't important. I'm saying it is so important that it's talked about it so much, and we can say we agree with, all of the other people that are talking about how critical it is. And there are quite a number of missions that are, as you know, going on to looking at, satellites are being deorbited as we speak. There's been a lot of activity, and we can say we support all of that. So, but maybe the time is also best spent going where no sessions have gone before. Expansion is definitely one of those. I do want to just point out we do have 20 minutes. So we're gonna respect people's time. We have to cut off an hour and a half, 3:30, just as promised. But the discussion is obviously excellent. And we can have a continuing discussion offline with drafts that be going around, and people can merge them up, or we can decide to have a follow-up. But do we want to have a session that, expansion wasn't one of the sessions that you just point out. Adriano, and all in your list, it wasn't. I see where the educated eye can see it was baked into a lot of them, but there wasn't a session specifically that hit over the head expansion.
Can I make a comment? Sorry. Go ahead, ma'am. You went.
Also, I can add something to develop the underdeveloped countries. We need a future plan, I think. And the future plan is expansion, because without expansion, we cannot industrialize the whole world. And to industrialize the whole world, we need this future expansion concept as a horizon. This is my idea, and I have a question. Can you put in or insert in the text also my proposal to look for a weapon-free moon, please?
I'll put it up for the floor. I think though, what's going to happen, you know, we say we want to make sure that we get all of the developing nations and all the non-spacefaring nations, but we also don't want to make sure we don't want to alienate the spacefaring nations either. So I mean, there has to be some balance. I mean, obviously we definitely agree with that, but how explicitly we say it or not explicitly we say it, it has a nuance that, you know, Karlton.
Can I offer?
I think that
Can I offer a couple compromises here?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
so.
Okay.
On the development, sorry, on the expansion side, my thinking is that, and I'm putting on an NSS hat for a second. When we talk about space settlement, that hold on, I'm coming back to the other thing. When we talk about space settlement, that is expansion is implied in there, because if you're settling locations to include moon and forward, it's included. So my thinking, Adriano, is that expansion is inherent in settlement, and to that end, during a session, we can clearly say that when we're talking about settlement, that includes expanding in these different ways. So I think we can embed it in under the umbrella of settlement and still achieve what you're talking about. And then to the point about weapons-free moon, under the topic of, and Frank, you hit this earlier, peaceful uses of outer space, if that is a topic that we have, then embedded in there, we can have the idea that these are things that some nations may be interested in. For example, and I know you're not speaking for New Zealand, but if New Zealand were to actually come up and say, this is something we want, then you could have, under that topic of peaceful uses of outer space, a weapons-free moon. And then that becomes a conversation. It won't ever be a requirement, because the reality is, if you're going to declare that, then you have to enforce it. And if you're going to enforce a weapons-free moon, then how are you going to enforce it? So that's, again, it's just a conversation. But to get your point in, if we put it under the umbrella of peaceful uses of outer space, we can still address it, and it becomes a topic. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yes, I think this is a good idea, and you misunderstood me in the sentence. Without expansion, we need to industrialize the whole world. My concept was that we, if we have a growth concept, a growth concept to industrialize the whole world, then we need also an expansion concept in the outer space, because the argument is no, the underdeveloped countries, the third world, they have not to develop in an industrialized way because of the environmental problems. Sorry for my question.
No, I understand. And I see your point on it. So, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so thank you first of all for clarifying my error
Yes.
here. I apologize. That was a mistake on my part. And I mean, so I agree. Just as a quick point out, the GPS, which is probably the biggest downstream one of the biggest downstream applications besides geospatial, and also you think about all of the financial transactions that it facilitates in the third world, even doesn't have banking that it's baked into it from its timing and precision. That's a weapon system. That was the designed weapon system. It was never envisioned that it would have these kind of civilian applications. It was or barely used on land. It was made for sea. I know I helped deploy them for the Defense Department. So at Johns Hopkins. So just it's an example that sometimes things have unintended consequences, and sometimes in good ways. Go ahead, Adriano.
No, I just wanted to underline more that the social growth and industrialization are the key, because if we don't.
Sorry, what in industrialization? I missed that first word.
The industrialization and the social growth are connected.
Oh, growth. Okay.
Connected. So if we don't expand into space, what should we do? We should industrialize, as Marie-Luise said, industrialize all the world. So all the developing countries, etc., should develop their own industries, and that is not sustainable. So it's a one way to go outside, and so the question is, how can the let me say the non-industrialized countries that are also they have a lower degree of education systems and capabilities, capacities of design, entering technological projects, design, etc., etc. What can they do in the middle of this big process of expanding? Well, I think what they are already doing, some of them are reaching the Artemis Accords or the China ILS. So everyone will play the role, every country will play the role that they can play with their capacities. I think everybody is necessary in this great challenge that we have facing to expand, and everybody can give their contribution. And of course, there are excellent minds even in underdeveloped countries. If given proper education, and they are excellent engineers and designers and everything else, and scientists, and not only, also philosophers we need, of course, not only technicians. So the big effort will be to really be able to involve the people. Think about the people, not only countries. We should think about the people that are not exactly the same thing of nations, no? So involving and putting at profit all the capacities, the immense human capacity. We are 8 billion. God, this is a richness. This is the biggest richness we have. That humanity never had before. 8 billion thinking heads. The question is, are we able to involve everybody? Are the bureaucrats at government really able to involve everybody? This is the real problem. No? Okay.
One of the things we're going to have, I think, is a challenge, and I want to make sure I get it back to you, Robert, is, and this is something I think we really need to come to terms with as a group. Clearly, wherever you sit, there's going to be a perspective on what's important. What I'm hearing in this discussion is, at least from my perspective, I'm hearing different words, different parlance being used where I see it as aligning as the same under certain topics we have. And so maybe I would recommend, and I don't think we have time to do it today, but as maybe an offline and a follow-up, we should, as a team, be very clear and in agreement terminology we want to use to the things we're talking about. And then the second part is, specifically what we are trying to accomplish. So case in point, and Adriano, I'm not stepping down on your point. I just want to make sure I'm getting it. When I hear words like industrialization and so forth, when I put on my international hat, that scares me because I think of climate change and rainforests being destroyed and stuff like this. So, and I definitely don't want, as a human going out into space, I don't want to, this is me speaking, I don't want to industrialize the moon. I don't want to industrialize Mars, because then we're going to do the same crap there. Sorry, forgive me, people. We're going to do the same thing there that destroyed the Earth or is destroying the Earth. Rather, I'd like us to look at space development in a way that creates new technologies that does a 2x issue. One, it allows us to go further and deeper into space to do things. Two, I can take that same technology and bring it here to Earth to reverse problems that I created here. And then when I go to the moon and to Mars, rather than having fossil fuel type stuff, I would use clean energy. And that becomes an advancement of humanity into space in a better way. Now, we're all saying the same thing to that end. We're using different words to say that. So I'm thinking that to bring this full circle, we should have, during the next session, just a quick point where we are clear on what we're trying to accomplish. We're using the same words, or at least we say our words, and we seek alignment on what those words mean. And the idea matches what we're trying to accomplish, that we stick with that as a team. And then this way we can make sure we're in alignment with the messaging. Because fast forward, if we get into this event and we're saying different things, we're going to really lose the audience because it's going to look like we're not in alignment ourselves. So I just offer that as a thought because I think we're all on the same sheet. We're just saying it different ways.
So you don't like the word industrialization?
No. My point is that we may be saying the same thing, but because words matter.
No. Yeah,
we need to make sure we're in alignment on what
I got what you said, but I mean, you can call it technological innovation, or you can call it but technological innovation is part of the industrial process. I think in the industrial activity encompass all what we are doing, all the production, the innovation, the technology, all the new technologies, everything is part of the industry. And industry is the way we work. And yeah, the moon and Mars, yeah, but maybe we should make our industries in space, in orbit, in Lagrange points, not on the surface of the moon and Mars. I don't know, just thinking loud. But however, the point is, yes, new technologies, clean energy, of course, why not? This is what we are talking about. But all of this, if we think that industrialization is a word that recalls back the bad habits, then we can try to think about a new term to be used. Yes, avant-garde should think about new terms, of course. Yeah, like we decided not to use anymore the word colonization, even if space colonization will be quite different from the old historic colonization, because there's nobody there to take their ground away. Yes,
that we know of.
Yeah, I have a proposal. We can call it advanced technological advancement. I have also a correction in my text.
I'm so sorry again.
I wanted not to say the whole word, but without expansion, we cannot industrialize the whole Earth, all the nations of Earth.
Oh, that I didn't miss here. Okay.
Yes.
Because I thought that's what you meant, but I actually wrote with, yeah, I said, okay. I mean, there is a new, I see Karlton's point, and I felt the same way. It's like, okay, we only have a few seconds left here, but why are we moving the industrialization from the Earth? You're saying because it's unsustainable, and it does imply that, well, why is it unsustainable? Because it's either because you don't have enough resources going in, or you have too much waste going out, because you're making it sound like the process is inherently dirty. We'll just use that word. And therefore, well, why do we want to move the problem around? That doesn't solve the problem. It just moves around. Then why do we want to pollute space and ruin that? So it doesn't sound to me. Also, I agree. I mean, this is why I asked. You remember, you and I, we had an issue with that. The words, the way you used those words before. I also made a comment that because it made in my mind, and this just means I don't get it. I don't understand, but
no,
I see
but
his point.
it's obvious. It's an evolution. So moving outside, we will also improve our technological processes.
Adriano, I gotta say, I would offer that it may be obvious to an individual, but it's not obvious to the large audience. At least in this discussion, all I'm saying,
we have to explain it. Correct.
No. All I'm saying, sir, is this is where, and I'm putting it back on my American hat and then taking it right back off. This is one of the challenges I see on the American side, because Americans will say exactly that. Well, it's obvious we should do that. Well, if you haven't lived abroad, it's not so obvious. So my point, and I know we're running out of time here, I want to give it back to the lead. All I'm recommending is, as a team, we take a moment next time to demystify what we think is obvious amongst ourselves. We find parlance that we're all comfortable with, that says and aligns with it. And then we move forward as one team because we're saying the same thing. That's all I'm saying.
Agree. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, great segue, Karlton, about next time we get together. So yes, Emeline, go ahead.
Frank's hand has been up for a while.
Oh, I didn't even see it. Thank you so much for pointing it out. Go ahead, Frank.
Sorry, Frank.
Oh, that's okay. So I know we're summarizing, so I don't want to say a whole lot, but I always want to come back to the reality that the Earth is in space. We are in space. We can't be anywhere else. And one of the difficulties in our language is the distinction between Earth and space. We're more or less stuck with it, but we should always remember that whether we talk about expansion or large-scale space migration, what we're really talking about is humanity moving out into the rest of the solar ecosystem. We're part of it now. We're in space right now. What we're talking about is moving into a larger space, if you will. One last thing I'd like to say is there is a distinction I like, and I'd like to recommend a book, if you haven't read it, by James Carse. Has anybody here read that?
What's it called?
The book is called A Finite Game or an Infinite Game. And
I haven't.
You've read it?
I have not. I'm going to look it up.
Okay. I'm just going to close by saying this. He says, in a finite game, there's a clearly defined endpoint, and there are winners and losers. In an infinite game, all parties are working to keep the game in play. There are no winners or losers, but rather those that drop out of the game due to a lack of will or resources to continue playing. I would not recommend using that language. I think it could take people off into a detour. But I would recommend that if you have a chance to read any of what he has said, underlying everything we're talking about, I think, is that we've been playing a finite game for thousands of years. What expansion is about is playing an infinite game potentially.
Excellent.
Okay,
I wish I'd written that
Good.
book. I didn't.
So I think Robert, Michael, Mikhail, Emeline, we know we have a big work to be done now to review our two events panels description and the abstracts for each panel and so on, in order to comply with the comments we had today. And okay, so I think this is work we have to do in next 2 weeks. I think, or
Okay.
1 week. Yeah.
so we'll take this back to the smaller committee and then report back to this was the everybody
And
group.
okay, one thing we had to do also today was to show our flyer. I will just show it now, even if we don't have time to discuss it, but I will share it to everybody. So
All right, I stopped the share and it's over. We're in overtime, so unfortunately I may have to go to another meeting. I have to leave.
okay, can you see it?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, so this is 2 pages only in an A4 format. In the first page, we have this slide of the truly sustainable development goals, our concept of sustainability. Then the invitation to join the coalition with the QR code lead directly to the form. Then the short test about Space18thSDG. This is basically what is online on the website. And this short added test that is Space for Sustainability. Okay, if you don't mind, I will read it. It's quick. Space development and sustainability of development as interconnected. To start developing beyond Earth is key to relieve our planet's environment from the burden of industrial development, to reduce pollution and favor wildlife. On the other hand, sustainable space development is a critical key issue as well. Orbital debris represent an increasing risk for space navigation and could close us into a cage, enchaining humanity at the bottom of the Earth's gravitational well. Irresponsible management of wastes on Earth in orbit and on the Moon may result in show-stopping conditions for space development itself. Conversely, skills and experience earned in space, such as total recycling, circular economy, and vegetable cultivation in closed environments, may help sustainability on Earth too. The Space18thSDG promotes full synergy between space and Earth sustainable development. We have the list of all the currently 71 organizations that signed our concept. And in the second page, we have the, sorry, maybe if I make a single page, it can be better seen. Okay, I'll try to follow a recommendation by Gary Barner that suggested to have a kind of flow chart here instead of a text. So this is an explanation of why we need to reorganize the 17 SDGs. Because if presented all together, it is not clear the dependence from some key SDGs, that is 7, 8, and 9, energy, economic growth, and innovation, and technology innovation, that sustain all of the other SDGs, both the social and environmental and the methodological SDGs. The point is that these are not sustainable, on Earth. So because the industrial, technological and industrial growth would crash with the environmental goals. That's why we need to add space in the world system, to the space development. Then there is the list of the upcoming panels, 12th of June and 13th of September, and events, the Space Tourism Conference in Los Angeles, the NSS ISDC, and IAC 75 in Milan. And we should also add what Karlton mentioned before, the summit, the Space Settlement Summit in autumn. Then we have all the logos of the 71 organizations, and okay, that's it. I will share this. This is still a draft, of course. I will share it with the whole partner, all the partners. So comments may be done, and we could still amend it. So it was useful if we could discuss it today, but I think we are already 8 minutes after the intended time, that is 90 minutes, 1 hour and a half. So I think we can maybe exchange our comments via email and do proper changes. However, this version is already the result of let's say 2 weeks of work in the small committee. So already it already includes some comments that were made, and some improvements were made, and so on. Okay, that's all.
All right. I think your friend dropped off for a meeting. I'm going to have to drop off myself, so I just look forward to the next session.
Okay. So Robert is out. Okay, good. So everybody is going away, so I think we can close for today. So thank you very much for joining and for the discussion. That was a really important discussion, both yesterday and today. And yeah, I think we know what we have to do. Okay. So thank you very much. Ciao.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.